and welcome everybody here. And as we start our meeting, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Sioux First Nation within the area of Treaty 3, and that many of the communities we service are in Treaties 5 and 9, the Anishinaabe Nation. And I'll ask for any amendments to the agenda. There are none. And a motion to, sorry, yes, CAO? None?
No, there are none.
Thank you. Motion to confirm the agenda for the April 20th Police Services Board meeting. Moved by Christine, seconded by myself. Carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest. We have none. And we have minutes to adopt from the all 2022 meetings, January 26th, Police Service Board minutes, January 13th, January 17th, February 22nd, and April 5th. Anything on those minutes? If not, then I will move that we adopt all those minutes. Moved by Christine, seconded by myself, and we are in favor. Carried. Business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to delegations, presentations, committees. None today, CAO.
No, there's none.
So items for discussion. First quarter OPP statistics, and Inspector Dool, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Haven't seen everybody here in a while, so hope everybody had a good Easter. It was not my favorite based on the weather, but I did get out skiing. I didn't see you out there, Mayor. Were you out there?
I've been out in April. I've never skied as much in April as I have this year. It's amazing. I didn't go today or yesterday, but I was there the previous 3-4 days.
Wow.
Hoping to fit in a couple more.
Yeah, well, it's snowing again, so anyway. Okay, so this is our first quarter report. You all have it in front of you, so we'll just go through it. And again, as usual, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them the best that I can. We go no public complaints based on policy, service, or conduct continuing, which is good. I think that's, I mean, knock on wood, that's a reflection of the positive work that our members are doing out there and the professionalism that they're showing. We did get out on the snowmobiles a bit more within the municipality this quarter. Good conditions for it. Plus we have our emergency response officer that is on a dedicated schedule to do things like snowmobile, marine, and things like that. So we expect to see that kind of a thing continuing. As we move forward throughout the year, there'll be a dedicated patrol on the waterways locally this summer as well. Foot patrol hours were fairly good, considering it was January, February, and March. And I think that was a lot where in Front Street, we did have a directed patrol set up for the members to go every shift to go to the drop-in center and just mingle there. And also Constable de Gagne was there every day as well as part of that procedure. With the, I mean, the school hours, I think and Andrea can talk to that, but things now with the school just opening up, she's very, very busy in the schools now. So we'll see a higher number of our involvement in the school moving forward. Okay, moving on to violent crime. We can see that of note here is the assaults are up, basically double from this same time last year. Really, it's continues to be, it's not, I can say that it's not on the street like mugging, beatings and things like that. It's more familial, domestic related at homes or in the hotels type thing. Any questions on the violent crime before I move on?
Abduction, is that, I see two, is that, seems serious, but
Yeah, not, again, abductions, that'll be domestic related. It'll be things like a forcible confinement, which means if, I'll just say, it means if two partners, so two spouses, one locks one in the bedroom, that is a forcible confinement, and then that falls under the abduction heading. It's just not a very, it's not a very good way to classify it, but that's what it is. It's not, we have not had anybody kidnapped or abducted. Okay, property crime.
I think Christine, did you have a question?
Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, no, sorry. I'm just with adjusting your glasses, perhaps. Sorry, can't hear you.
Okay, property crime.
I didn't have a question. I was scrolling and adjusting. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
No problem. Don't hesitate to wave.
We're pretty close to what we were last year. Again, the theft unders continue to be an issue, and that is still predominantly from the LCBO. There was a meeting yesterday with myself and the detached commander and the LCBO because Kenora wants to look at doing a different model for their store. So I was part of that meeting, and it was with a different group of people from the LCBO, and they recognize that we have issues with alcohol in this community, but they don't recognize how the thefts have anything to do with that. And what we really tried to stress is that, you know, last year, $35,000 in policing costs directly related to shoplifting from the LCBO may not seem like a lot of money, but it is for just one line item. That's a pretty large amount. So anyway,
So how do they see that that's not related to alcohol? The people are stealing alcohol, and they're probably stealing it because of an addiction.
yeah, what they're, I mean, I don't want to guess what they're assuming, but they're saying more that the alcohol issues in Sioux Lookout are much bigger than just the theft part, because they thought if we went to the Manitoba model, that's not going to solve all your alcohol issues. And we acknowledge that, but at least it's doing something.
Yeah, there's no one thing that will solve all the problems, but there's a whole bunch of small things that could help.
But I did because the Mark guy that was part of our meetings, he was there, and I did acknowledge him for at least the first of all for listening to the police services board and the Sunday closures for here, and that they're bringing in these locked cabinets. That's a good start. But I wanted it to happen during that call, while I was on that meeting, but it didn't happen. It happened 10 minutes after. We got a call of a theft from the LCBO. I wish it was on while I was on my Skype meeting. And they didn't steal vodka that time. They stole peach schnapps. And so you can't lock it all up in cabinets. Maybe they should, but it's an opportunity. It's theft of opportunity, right? So anyhow, that's really where we are with the property crime. I don't know if there's any questions related to that.
So those theft unders, 14 this year, largely LCBO?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that would be 14 calls, right, so far year to date. If they're not all going to be from the LCBO, but even if 10 of them are, 10 times 100, or 10 times 6.5 is 650 times 100. There's your bill for the quarter for thefts.
Yep. It's at 6.5 hours is the weighted for a theft under.
Yeah. Drug crime, nothing really to highlight there at this point.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Inspector. Overlooking theft over, we had 0 last year. In the same period, we have 3 this year.
Yeah, and I didn't look into those so I can't tell you what they are right now. I'm not sure.
And the under over is $5,000.
The over, yes, it's $5,000. Yeah,
Thanks.
likely related to vehicles when they get like a vehicle theft. Likely, that's usually what they are, but I don't know for sure. Okay.
There's nothing on sudden increase in vehicles like the community we should be advising them of or anything.
No.
Okay.
No. Any other questions related to property or drugs then? Okay. Moving on to the clearance rates. Our property crime clearance rate increased a little bit. We're still well for property crime. We're well above the provincial average, but some of that, we could see an improvement there. Some of it is when it's those. Again, I hate to pick on the one issue, but it could be that shoplifting from the LCBO, and then it's a grainy picture that we get from security, and we can't figure out who that person is, and they're gone. So it's an unsolved. Yeah, and that's really all I have on that. I mean, I guess one thing that is important, and it would be for the public to know, so the criminal record and vulnerable sector screening checks, because everybody's ramping back up again with volunteer work or hiring, lots of people are hiring again. We're getting quite a demand on our
You frozen on our screens, Inspector.
3 weeks to get a return. Sorry.
You froze that we're getting quite a demand on our.
Okay. I might, if it goes off again, I might just turn my video off. But we're getting quite a demand for criminal record check and vulnerable sector checks on our admin staff, and they do take a lot of work. We do say a turnaround is about 3 weeks just for the public to know that, but it can take longer if you just moved to this community from a municipal policed community, because we then rely on them to provide us with the data, and that can take about a month for them to get back to us. So it's a lot of work. The public is really patient, and we appreciate that. But if the numbers keep coming up for more and more people needing vulnerable sector checks, it may just keep, the delay may be even longer. Okay. And then we get into the billing sections, and I think the way we've been doing this lately is I allow you guys to go through it, and then you just ask me the questions.
We're down considerably from last year in the same quarter.
Mhm.
Cold winter, what do you attribute? I mean, it's a significant decrease.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not exactly sure why that has come down so much. I mean, I know for my other communities, especially the northern ones, when January, February, we were not in a real lockdown, but we were back into there was a lot more restrictions again, and I think the flights had been restricted, but I don't remember what they were like in early 2021. I can't remember if that was like a bit of an opening period or not. It's hard to put it always back to COVID, but it really, what I've learned over the last number of presentations to you folks is that a lot of these numbers fluctuate by the traffic at the airport, in and outs, and whether we're back, and it sounds like the flights are going to start increasing again, back to full service in, well, that's initially what they'd said a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if that's changing again with the outbreaks, but I don't know.
Well, be interesting to see. Any questions, Christine? No, just no questions here other than that general trend. Christine, sorry. Yeah.
No, I don't have any at this time.
And one interesting one is if you look at statutes and acts on page 2 of 5 for that part of the billing statement, the mental health act sections, they're quite a bit down. I mean, we're talking about a weight of 3.5, but they are, threat of suicide from 26 down to 9. That's a substantial decrease there too. So
And same with attempts to, and you can't put a finger on what would have caused that to decrease so much.
no, I mean, maybe when Andrea, you can turn your mic on if you have any ideas from your discussions with MCERT, but I don't really know.
On this morning, Andrea, were you on the COVID coordination call this morning, and I thought KDSB Michelle said that they had increased mental health calls through land ambulance this year, especially youth.
That would definitely fit with what we're seeing. Just that they're not coming through 911 and police because people are better connected to the proper resources and proper channels. So I know that Nan Hope, that call line was being used quite a bit through local communities, and then land ambulance is responding, not necessarily needing our assistance. They've had their community paramedicine program up and running for a year now. So they've been interacting with those people who might not be getting the assistance they need, but have been identified as having or requiring need for service to connect to MHAP and programs like that. So they've been connected to more people, and we the people that we're seeing with our mental health act calls for service are either people that need additional assistance, so there's something else like a FASD diagnosis or something like that that's undiagnosed and untreated, so that their method of go-to is call 911, or they are really in crisis and need services.
So then just to, Mayor, if it's okay, just to end my presentation, and I think it is important to highlight a couple of things. I mean, I know it's not part of this quarter, but this past weekend we had our provincial seatbelt campaign, and I thought the detachment put a lot of, considering all the other things that were going on locally with calls for service, I thought they did an excellent job getting out there and issuing a lot of warnings, but then also, issuing the fines that needed to be laid for seatbelts. And just a reminder to everybody that we got to make sure that we're wearing them, even when we're zipping around a little town like this. Small little accidents can be very, very dangerous for people. So, but they did a very good job with that. And I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see the media release that Andrea put out recently about the, I'm assuming we did put one out anyway, about the guns that were recovered this weekend.
Michelle distributed this morning. You haven't had a chance to read it fully yet.
Yeah. So we ended up again with we know that this happens. We have, sometimes these people, we'll call them gang members, will come in, they'll find an apartment or a rental unit, and they'll move in there, and they will essentially start doing all of their dealing out of this take advantage of that person, and then start dealing out of that apartment. And with them comes things like guns and violence associated to it. So it was really good police work that got them what they did. I mean, the initial call was kind of fluky how it ended up happening, but really excellent work by the officers to keep digging and then finding those weapons. So I did, on behalf of the community, I sent a message to the head Crown in Kenora, really emphasizing that case. They need to take this very, very seriously. Since we're the gateway to the north here, we don't want these gangs feeling that they can be comfortable getting a foothold here. So if and when they're caught, they need to be held responsible. That way they don't see if the punishment doesn't outweigh the profit that they're making. It's very, very important. And it might be one of those things that if these kind of trends continue, where we maybe need to see if the Police Services Board is willing to talk to the Crown and maybe just add to that my message to them, how important this is. We need to keep this community safe, because that in turn also keeps the North safe.
Sure, you bring that to us if you need it. I did notice in scanning that article, what surprised me, the youth of the two, were they not 20, 21 years old?
19 and 22. Yeah, they're
19 and
really
20.
young.
That's it seems extremely young for that kind of activity. One, it sort of begs the question, who's supervising them? Because I don't think isn't there somebody more senior in terms of age and above them?
Yeah, I would say, and I think I'm not an expert in this stuff, but those are the people that the higher ups would send to a community like Sioux, because if they get caught, whatever, we'll find a couple of other young ones to do. And that's the travesty of the whole situation, right? But
And they both had Winnipeg addresses.
yeah.
No, if you want to follow up from the Police Services Board, I'm sure that we're ready to do that. Carl, let us know.
Okay, we'll see how, hopefully, I got a message back from the Crown, and he acknowledged it, and he said that they will, thanks for flagging it. So we'll see how this one goes. And if it doesn't go the way that, we think it needs to, then definitely I will.
Well, I certainly read the Thunder Bay paper about the stuff that goes on there, which seems to come in from, I'm guessing, from Toronto. Larger center, obviously, but if we can do our best to keep that out of Sioux Lookout, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why we have now made the investment. We've got Detective Constable Matt Evans back as our, it's called the CSCU, which is our local drug officer and drug and property crime. And his investment, my investment, putting him in there is to make sure that this stuff is targeted so that we don't end up like what's happening in Thunder Bay or in other northern communities.
Good. If there's nothing else on the quarterly report?
Nothing, but I don't know if I don't have the agenda open here, but part of the quarterly report I'd like to do is have Andrea just present on her last year's statistics and then what she's been able to do so far this year, because I think it's really important.
Good. Yeah, the next item on the agenda is LCBO project. So we'll do Andrea first before on. Go ahead, Andrea.
Great, thank you. So 2021 activities, we were impacted by COVID quite a bit. I don't have an actual number, more of a qualitative assessment of the programs and presentations that we gave for the community. So in 2021, we attended the Pride Day event that was held by the municipality, and then as well as the Remembrance Day ceremonies. And we put a float in for the Chamber of Commerce Christmas parade. So there was some community outreach there. Community engagement, we were doing foot patrol and drop-ins at the Seniors Activity Center when they reopened briefly there later in the year. And we did a meet and greet with Wanawanaga Aboriginal Head Start Program youth. So we spent a few days last summer out there with them. Again, just making them comfortable with the police. That was our one in because we didn't have the ability to go into schools and interact with those youth. A lot of the community safety that we did last year was based around COVID and the vulnerable population. So we were part of the Vulnerable Population Committee and assisted with camp cleanup there, and then connecting the Northwestern Health Unit and paramedicine connect with individuals who did not have an address who required healthcare or COVID information or access to healthcare that way. So we did a lot of that. We also got our SWAP team, so the Substance Use and Addictions Program is a Northwestern Health Unit program grant we are partnered with. So we assisted them with getting the outreach team up and running, and our crisis response program is going now. Half of that's funded through the SWAP program. The other half is through the Ministry of Health and through CMHA. So we did get our teams up last year and it's been running really well. Don't have the statistics in front of me, but they have definitely been connecting with people and getting people better connected so they're not calling 911 all the time. Last year, we also created a pre-charge diversion program. So adult youth formally can be diverted through programming instead of laying charges and bogging down the already overloaded justice system. So we have quicker results, and we're working with youth probation and then legal so that we can hold people accountable for those smaller offenses that might just get disregarded through the court process. Last year, we also did a big bicycle safety program. So we did the Ride Safe Bike program from Southern Ontario in August. We had a group come up and they did a full day of bike training with our youth. We had about 15 to 20 participants who showed up. It was a really hot day, so that was good. Through the spring and summer, we also ran a positive ticketing program and then bike safety ask an officer column, and we did a bike helmet safety campaign as well. So we had a whole bunch of bike safety going on last summer. It was really well received by the community. Last year, we also ran our community GSA club virtually. That only lasted for about 4 months, and then the kids kind of tapered off. We're hoping, we've been in discussions with the high school, and since they've reopened the schools, we'll be getting that back up and running in person in their facility this year. What else? Sorry. We have the auxiliary unit in Sioux Lookout now. So Sioux Lookout auxiliary unit was made official in August of 2021. We ran an open house and a recruitment information session and have 4 full-time or four auxiliary unit members now based out of Sioux Lookout who can assist with community events and public outreach, as well as ride-alongs and assisting our frontline when necessary. We are still participating in situation table meetings. So we brought 10 individuals to situation table last year. The rest of the individuals that we would typically divert to situation table, we were able to, we didn't have to bring them to that level because we had our our crisis response team interacting with them instead, so that it didn't get elevated to the level that we needed the table to see. So that's why our numbers were lower there than normal. Usually we have about 20 people that we refer in a year. We did start on our OPP kids program last year. We had 3 classes running in Sacred Heart. We did not finish the program though, just due to COVID shutdowns. So that was, I think we did half of that program with the kids and then the school shut down. So we didn't have a very big presence in the school last year. We were able to do 2 human trafficking awareness presentations with the students at Sacred Heart, grades 7 and 8. And we did a little bit of anti-bullying and safe schools at classroom education at Sacred Heart, as well as keeping students safe in Sioux Lookout orientation for Pelican Falls, although they didn't end up attending. The students never ended up attending. So that was pretty much it for schools and outreach last year. We did 53 media releases for our activities, including 28 social media posts. So we're going to be trying to increase that this year in our public outreach. Quite a bit from 2021, a little bit different. A lot of it was COVID focused and that outreach focus. For 2022, in Q1 so far, we've completed our OPP Kids 6-week program. So we were able to educate 7th grade, well, 5, 6, and 6, 7
Okay,
classes
there you
between.
go. You froze up for a minute there, Andrea. Now I'm getting a message. My internet is unstable.
Oh dear, you're good. Okay, I'll start over with our OPP Kids program. So this year we were able to run 7 classes through the OPP Kids program that ended. Actually, just had my last class closing this morning. So we were able to talk to, I believe we're up to almost 80 kids, 80 youth who have done that program this year. It's pretty good. Really well accepted. They really enjoyed us being in the school. We've also had some opportunities to do some presentations on bullying and safe schools, again at Sacred Heart School, and that was by request from them. And that's about it for in-school presentations. That took quite a bit of time. So every class we do OPP Kids is about an hour and a half with the class, and it goes for 6 weeks. So it's a pretty big time dedication. It's nice to be done with it in our end of our first quarter here. Other than that, we've been continuing on the Healthy Community Task Force. So they'll be taking up the community well-being plan is what we've been told. So looking forward to that, and then increased interagency communication, just so we can get all of our service providers back on the same page now that things are starting to open up again. And we've got a whole bunch of community projects that are starting up. So we're still a co-chair in that. The other chair is from youth probation. We're trying to hand it off to a healthcare provider and getting them more involved in the task force. It is a healthy communities task force, not a justice system task force. So hopefully we can advocate there to get somebody else to step up. In the meantime, we think it's important, so we're staying with it. The other thing we've seen this year is a huge increase in the involvement frontline police officers have with persons with undiagnosed and unsupported FASD. So that's a big problem this year for us. We've got one individual specifically we've been dealing with since the middle of December last year, who have been causing almost daily calls for services for officers. And the only thing we can do is get our supporting agencies who are supposed to be taking care of individuals that are suffering from these developmental disabilities actually doing their job, to take up the slack that we're seeing in the system. So making them understand that somebody in crisis who has these disabilities is not being supported if all of the services they're getting are from frontline police and paramedics. So we've been working really closely with paramedicine, DSO, and community living, as well as our outreach team, to get these individuals, or this one individual specifically, the support they need so that they're not calling 911. And I think that that's going to see some bigger systemic changes. We're also working with Firefly to present awareness programming to frontline officers, and working with the regional FASD community of practice to see if we can get some better supports and a better understanding of what FASD is and the consequences for the justice system, or people involved in the justice system they don't understand consequence, individuals who are suffering from severe FASD. So the justice system has no, they're not being held responsible because they don't understand what their actions are. So I think we're working on getting some more awareness and programming going for our community. It is an increasing issue that we're seeing. We're going to continue, or we are continuing to support our vulnerable populations. Like Carl was saying, we were doing walkthroughs daily at the warming center and making sure there were no issues there. We're also continuing to participate with the outreach team and crisis response teams to get people connected to channels so that they're not involved with the justice system if they can be otherwise supported. And then Carl's officer-led initiative for combating illegal liquor sales in Sioux Lookout. That's been really successful. I was also invited to go to the Addictions Center tour that MHAP created. So I went to Kenora with the MHAP team and toured the Morningstar facility as well as CMHA's facilities and their shelter services, and seeing how that whole system works. It's been really enlightening, and it really showed us how disconnected our community is when we're dealing with people and addictions issues. You've got 4 service providers who are trying to provide the same service, but we don't have that first step. So sober first mentality is what they've come up with in Kenora, and it's really working for them. And so we're going to bring that back with the Addictions Center in Sioux Lookout. We have a meeting tomorrow, I believe, to discuss what that's going to look like. But I believe that they're going to be taking the model out of Kenora and seeing if we can make it fit in Sioux Lookout, seeing how we can make it fit in Sioux Lookout. So that was a really good 2-day tour. Really good community engagement there too with our service providers. What else? So we've been working on our sexual assault reduction strategies with Mike Kreis, our Staff Sergeant Mike Kreis here. So we did note that the highest number of sexual assaults in the region happened in Sioux Lookout in the cluster. So they've been creating a strategy to help deal with, or help reduce those numbers in the future. So we're assisting our community mobilization. Myself, I'm assisting in that process just by engaging our partners and assisting with the education and support. So getting people connected to services and then making sure that people know what is out there and know how to report, as well as be educated on how to prevent sexual assaults from happening. What else? Community outreach. So we have had the Battle of the Badges hockey game that happened. That was really, really successful. We had over 300 people attend, not including the hockey players themselves. And they raised over, oh my goodness, I don't remember the final count, Carl. $2,000 for Sierra Hop's bursary fund. So that's been really successful. That was organized by one of our first year officers, and he's super keen. Brett Harrison did a really, really good job. They're also, so we've got officers coordinating a half marathon in June for the OPP, and then the Blueberry Festival, we're going to host an open house in August to showcase Sioux Lookout OPP and reopen attachment to the community, kind of re-invite people in, see what we're all about. This summer, we're also going to have 2 YIP students, so Youth in Policing Initiative. Those are youth 15 to 18 years old who are getting paid minimum wage to work out of the Sioux Lookout detachment. I'll be supervising them, and we're hoping to get them to assist in public outreach and creating some more education programming that we might be missing. So having that youth perspective on what they want to learn more about and how to engage the younger generation is what our goal is this summer with them. And we're also recruiting for a cadet and auxiliary positions. That's the near future for the safety officer.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Christine, questions, comments?
That's awesome work. That's good to hear that all those is happening. Yeah, that's awesome. Other than that, I don't have any comments.
Yeah, I echo that. A couple of questions. You mentioned earlier on, and honestly, that was a lot to report on. One question: when you say we, who is we? Is we you, or are there other? Is it you and other officers, or?
Oh, good question. It depends on which portion. So
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's all me. We do have quite a bit of support from our front line. A lot of the community outreach stuff is being taken over by the front line and our new officers, and they're doing a really good job at it. The community or the illegal liquor sales investigations are all frontline officers. Sexual assault reduction strategy is a OPP base, so I have a role in that. It's not my thing though, but and then the other stuff is led by the safety officer, but it's really we have all of our everyone's on board, everyone's here to help, all hands on deck. So
Good. You mentioned early in the report diversion, and I'm just wondering, where are you diverting to?
good question. So youth are being diverted to youth probation, and they have, so instead of having to go through the court process and then they get sent to probation, we're sending them directly there. They're agreeing. Most of the time the kids are agreeing that they did something wrong and they don't want to have to face the judge or JP. Like they want to have services, or they'll agree to do whatever they need to do to get the help they need. So we're diverting them straight off. So we're referring them to youth probation, and then youth probation is doing programming with them. So education programming, they've got access to a whole bunch of different programs, and all of the programs that they could do through, if an individual is charged and coming to them, they can do that same education and connection to services before they're charged, which prevents them from getting a criminal record, which is great. And it prevents them from having to go through the justice system. So they get a lot quicker response, and it's on them then too. So they're being held responsible and actually holding themselves accountable to complete these diversions. So it's been a really successful program. Adults are getting diverted to non-legal services. And again, it's a way for them. So these theft under calls, so shoplifting calls, like things like that, they'll sit in a round table. It's more of a, oh my goodness, a restorative justice circle idea. So they're addressing their behaviors in a round table and seeing, I know this is wrong. I'm doing this because, and then trying to address the root cause of the problem. So instead of drawing these individuals through the court process where, theft under 5,000 is probably going to get dropped by our crowns anyways, just because of historical trauma and all the rest of it that we know go along with it. They're being held responsible and doing things that are meaningful for them to make up for it. So that's what the diversion processes are, or pre-charge diversion are, that we are creating.
So to have a pre-charge diversion, you must have the officers of the detachment must be involved to alert somebody before charging. How does that sort of system work to divert them before they're charged?
Yeah, so the officers will do an investigation to gain ground. So they have to actually have grounds for a charge. So if they're diverting for a theft, we have to be able to lay a charge for theft. So they have to do their investigation still. But then when they're talking to the individual, instead of laying charges and giving them a sheet of paper that says, here's your court date, we can give them a sheet of paper that says, instead of going to court, you'll have to contact NAN Legal Services at this number. You could be charged, or you could have been charged for this offense, and you're going to have to participate in a restorative justice process instead. And they'll agree to that. They'll sign off on that, and then it goes to NAN Legal for them to take care of and offer support. And it's been really, people are completing the programming, so it's actually getting them connected to some support services. We've got one individual I can think of specifically. We diverted them for supplying minor with alcohol, and they had no idea about the rules. They were 19 years old themselves. They had no idea about the rules that you couldn't sell alcohol to youth. So NAN actually educated them and got them connected to, they were selling alcohol so they could buy food for their family, essentially. So they got them connected to better support services, or more stable support services, and got them connected with education so that they could go back home and have a job at the end of it. So all of this from one diversion for one charge that probably would have gotten dropped in front of the Crown.
So Andrea, Carl, this seems to me like this is it's top down, in that I think if the inspector, et cetera, down are saying we want to do this diversion, but it has to be bottom up supported. one of the things I think officers get frustrated with is what I've heard is people being charged, going to court, getting a slap on the wrist, or not getting anything, and then it's sort of a cycle. So this would be officer supported if it were successful, I guess. So is that what we're seeing, that there is success, that the people who are being diverted and are being connected to services aren't recycling through again?
I think so. We do have quite a lot of buy-in from the front line, and it's honestly, it makes their job easier. They don't have to lay the charges that they still have to complete their investigation, but they're not having to do all that paperwork. They're not creating crown briefs or anything like that anymore for these minor offenses. So we're seeing buy-in from that. We're also seeing with people getting an increased involvement in social services, we're seeing less calls for services from individuals for the most part. So when that stops happening, then we're going to have to start charging. But for right now, like people who are being diverted are getting supported. So we're seeing them get assistance.
Right. And I think that they, you know, and I can't speak from everybody on the front line, but I just know that, like you said, Mayor, there's a lot of things that we put forward, and then the Crowns have made decisions that these things are no longer going to be prosecuted. So that was the major frustration. Then it was just dropped, and then nothing happened with it. And then the recidivism would just continue and continue and continue. At least this, I mean, we don't necessarily know all the outcomes. Andrea finds out about many of them, but we don't always know about all the outcomes of these things, and nor do we need to know, other than, you know, the officers now feel that they're putting their work to something that is actually going to may do something. Yes, there's still, you know, we put the shoplifters from the LCBO, they probably are going to do it another 5 or so times, but at least maybe by the 5th time, maybe the program will work. That's more of the belief that we have here, is because technically when these things are written, they say that if it doesn't work, you know, if they don't abide by it the first or second time, then now you have to go through with charges. Well, I think that's the whole thing that we have as a culture with the Police Services Board and as a detachment, is it's not going to fix itself overnight with 1 or 2 things. So let's keep trying, and then hopefully we'll get some successes out of it, like the one that Andrea mentioned.
So how does the situation, you talked about the situation table, 20 typically and annually, I think in 10 this year. How does that play into this diversion? Or does it?
So when we can divert people through situation, or if we, with the diversion process, it makes it actually easier because people are being held accountable without taking them to situation table level. So when there's individuals who are getting involved in that minor crime and minor activities, and we know that there's things that they need to get connected to, we can connect them, or the front line can connect them without having to go through the situation table, which is nice. And they're getting the support, and they're being held accountable for one specific action that they can make up for. And it seems like people understand that better than, hey, we're worried about you, what can we do to help and assist? And so it's been really effective for a lot of our individuals who they won't go seek help for themselves, or like situation table, when that's offered, they actually have to take support. So when you're still holding them accountable for an action, and they understand that this is the one, like they did something wrong and they have to account for it, kind of thing. So it's voluntary kind of, but it's actually something specific you can speak to that addresses the issues. So it's really effective for getting people help and assistance. Community situation tables then left for those individuals who, even though they're agreeing or they want to change, they can't. So there's some systemic barrier in the way, or a support service in the way that's blocking that. So it's bringing the situation table, the more difficult situations that need a larger change. So they need more support through DSO, or they need appropriate services connected that we can't. It's not just a basic change in behavior.
And the crisis response team, how does that fit into the diversion, if at all, or the situation table?
So crisis response team is part of our situation table. We aren't seeing as many individuals get connected to services through them, but it's the larger systemic changes that we're seeing help with. So CMHA, they brought in CMHA into the community. And I think that the number of undiagnosed mental health issues and individuals with mental health issues is being recognized now by CMHA when we weren't even on their radar before. And we've definitely seen some, it's not the individuals themselves that are getting diverted from hospital, but there's been a whole lot of processes put in place through CMHA for how to deal with somebody who how to get them connected to more regional resources that we may not have thought to connect them with earlier, and how to change our regional pathways, I guess, for accessing care to make sure that the people in Sioux Lookout and accessing Sioux Lookout for care aren't forgotten in that system. So I think that's where crisis response has shone the last year that they've been up and running, and hopefully we'll have a new worker. Actually with CMHA, they've just hired a new worker who is a paramedic and worked in the hospital setting for a little while. So their expertise may change and help that more case management, front load the individual case management to get them connected to services. But right now, CMHA has been really helpful to just create those pathways and get we know that there's a lot of undiagnosed mental health in Sioux Lookout, but now they've got the numbers to back that up. So we could see some bigger changes.
Well, that's great. And I think that your trip to Kenora as the inspector and Michelle and I went, a month or more ago for tour of the Morning Star. We didn't get the CMHA, but I think that connection for us to see, I think we've always known there's more available supports in Kenora and services. We really know that now, but what we need to do is convince some of those Kenora-based agencies that, and that's what it sounds like you're doing, of the numbers that are here and the enhanced services and programs that we need here. So that's great. Just wanted a couple of GSA. You said that's going again. They used to meet in the basement of the youth center, the lower level of the Centennial Center.
Yeah.
Is that, will they be going back there, or you said that they're going to be using the high school facilities?
So we've opted to change to the high school. We were running under the Friendship Center banner, but there was a minor incident last year that kind of shone some light on the Friendship Center's inability to provide insurance, and like if anything happened to the kids while they were in that space, there was no support for them. So if somebody had to go to the hospital or something like that, there was no insurance or anything that could cover that we were aware of. So when we haven't gone back to that space, and the school actually reached out and said, hey, we do have community use of space here that would be covered for all your insurance needs and all the rest of it, like if you brought the program here. And it's those kids. So that instead of moving down to the community, oh my goodness, so the youth center and the facility there, they'll be in their own space. So in the high school where they are comfortable and have a space already. It just seemed reasonable. I know that we did put a lot of funding towards improving the space down at the youth center just before we had to close down in person 2 years ago. So I don't think that that's even been used in its full form yet. So that was a discussion that the leadership had, and I'm not sure. I don't think that they're going to be using that municipal space anymore.
So something, Michelle, that we perhaps as a municipality need to follow up on what the utility of that space. Okay, sorry, just one last item, Andrea, and that was you mentioned Healthy Community Task Force and that you're a co-chair and you're trying to have the police step away from that. Actually, a just community is a healthy community. So I would encourage I think that the OPP, the police, have a unique opportunity to work across so many, if I call them silos, but so many other agencies. And just as the municipality, we cover a broad brush, and we're engaged in many things in which we don't have direct engagement. The OPP has such a broad engagement, more so than most of the other agencies in that task force. So I think you do a wonderful job there, and I would encourage the OPP to. My thought is to stay on as co-chair, because I think you can really pull that together and make agencies accountable, let's say, as well as work with them.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's all I had, Inspector. Back to you on this.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that Andrea talked about there, and that just shows you how busy she is and how valuable she is to this detachment. She was being very modest when she said that it's not her, but it is mostly her that does all this stuff. So we do recognize how incredibly busy that Andrea is, and we're trying to find some opportunities where we can get her some help with our social media presence potentially, and getting some other officers trained in that. We've been very, I don't know if the municipalities noticed, but we've been very active on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook recently. We had our new acting regional media liaison. It's a civilian. She came and did a whole bunch of videos of an ice fishing tournament. She did some great pictures from the hockey game. I'd encourage everybody to check those out if you're on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Really, really good. Back to the one person, we won't mention names, but the one person that we have, there's one individual that we've dealt with probably almost on a daily basis, Andrea, and this person suffers from major mental health issues related to parents probably consuming alcohol or whatever, but this person is calling the police, calling 911 just to talk with people, or saying that she's going to kill herself just so that the police will come and be this person's friend, and then take him to the hospital. And we take her to the hospital, and then she phones 911 from the hospital bed just to have an officer come by again. An officer just told Andrea and I yesterday that he's given that person one of their work cell phone number, and then she'll call in the middle of the night and they just leave it on speakerphone, and they just talk to her for 4 hours at sometimes. So like, Andrea is doing a really good job trying to, and it's unlike, I'm sitting trying to remain calm when I'm reading these emails, trying to get these service providers to do the job that they need to do and get this lady into the help that she needs. And it is almost unbearable to watch how slow this is happening. And finally, they've been able to get this person to the support that they need. And it was supposed to happen within a week. And now we're sitting at going on 3 weeks. And then, it's because there's paperwork that needs to be done, or, we got to, like, there's always these excuses. And, first, it doesn't really matter. We're wasting a lot of officers' time. But the biggest thing is that, and I finally lost it, and I put this in an email. This lady is going to be the victim of human trafficking. This is going to be the person that's found on the side of the highway dead because no one's doing anything. And it can't be always the police that are expected then just to pick this stuff up and try to prevent that from happening. We're doing the best that we can, but we really, really need these other social agencies, and I can talk about that later with you guys, to step up and move this along faster. It can't be like this all the time. It's unbelievable. But anyway, we'll keep working. Andrea's doing a good job pushing that ball forward, and I try to stay calm, but every now and then I have to throw an angry email in there too. The sex assaults, I'm sure you all saw the media release that went out about it, and I'm not sure if there was any questions related to that you guys had.
I thought it was a good media release. No, it was Christine?
No, I haven't even got a chance to look.
Question related, but not directly to that media release. When you spoke, Andre, you talked about anti-human trafficking, let's say going into the Sacred Heart and the public schools, the elementary schools. Do you go to the high school at all for that? And also, presumably, this one case that you were just talking about, Inspector, isn't in school anymore. But there must be a lot of vulnerable people who aren't in the schools. How do we reach them?
So traditionally, I would be in the high school with the community partners. So we partnered last year with the sexual assault Nadiwe Center, and they have a human trafficking program. So the education that we're doing, they have a presentation, and they have some experts, and they have the support personnel that go with all that. So we'll pull it into the school and help them with their presentation and that education and outreach. We are just starting to come out of COVID, so we haven't been into this high schools yet, but it will be definitely, it's on the radar of especially the oh my goodness, not the Winks team, but the student care support teams of these different First Nations councils. So we were working with Shibogama last year a little bit to educate on human trafficking and drug and alcohol awareness for the youth coming in. And I'm anticipating the same. We have yet to reach out to them just because we need to get this up and running with our partners. So they're still working remotely. I'm not sure that they're allowed back in schools yet for their policy, but it's all up and coming in the springtime as everything starts to open up here. That's definitely a goal of the program, is to get that programming back into the schools and into the high schools, and the awareness and public outreach out there.
Good, thank you.
I mean, I think what we could do is do some strategic messaging as well. Because what we are getting is, we've had a few of the sexual assaults they would be considered human trafficking, where we have an individual in this community that has picked up vulnerable people, offered them alcohol for various sexual favors, which is basically for prostitution style stuff. And that I was just speaking with Detective Staff Sergeant Dana Wellick about this one incident. And I think what we're going to do is, even in that case, we don't have enough at this point to charge an individual, but we know who it is. So we're going to bring them in anyway and let them know that we know, and put out some pretty serious warnings. But I think we might be able to find some messaging that we could put out, just public messaging, so that everybody understands what that is, because that has happened in this community since I got here, where there's people that will buy alcohol and then pick up vulnerable people and provide them with alcohol for certain favors. And maybe we just need to do messaging on that too, just letting people know we know people are doing it, and if you get caught, here's the offense you're facing.
Good.
And then I just she talked about getting these youth and policing students. What I would like, if you're open to it as a police services board, part of this whole program is for them to learn what happens in a police service. And it might be valuable for them, not in a formal meeting like this, but maybe for them to get an opportunity to speak to somebody on the police services board and just get an idea of how the police service board works. Would be something I'd be looking forward to seeing this summer with those students, if you'd be open to it.
Christine?
Yeah, that sounds good. I could probably. I mean, I'm still kind of learning myself, but I could probably try to do something or say something.
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then, sorry, Mayor, I just have a couple other things quickly. The detox center, I am hosting a meeting here tomorrow with a number of the stakeholders. I'm not sure if Michelle's coming, but she wasn't. Okay. Just after Andrea's meeting, when she took various people for that tour, what we're finding again is that there's these silos, as you'd said, then they're not communicating with each other, and then they're not blaming each other for things, but there's just not good communication. So we're going to bring them all here, and we all want the same thing. So let's just talk about it. And there's two representatives, right, Andrea, from the Friendship Accord that are coming. And we can deal with all these rumors and innuendos. And we don't have a lot to say in it, but at least we're just going to bring everybody's willing to come, I think. And we'll just let the conversation happen in the boardroom, because this ball has to keep moving forward, or it's just not going to happen. And we don't want that again. So any questions on that or concerns on that?
I'll get an update from Michelle, I think, after.
Okay. And that, for the open house, if since we're planning it so well in advance, which is great, if there's anything that the board would like to see there, anything well, I think the board should have a table there if they would like again. And but if there's anything within the OPP that you guys think would be neat to have, now's the time for us to be able to put in that request.
All right, but, give us a chance to think on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Christine, if you have anything, please go through Michelle, and I'll do the same.
Okay.
So sorry, that's all I got. But again, a lot of this is all great work that Andrea does for us here.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Andrew. And thanks for the report.
Yeah,
It was
that's
weighty.
great.
Good. We'll move on then to item 8B, the Silicate LCBO project final report, Inspector Dool.
Sorry, Mayor, I don't know what I'm being asked to present here.
That's all right. What we can say is that the pilot study, the period was over, the
Yeah.
3 months, and LCBO have agreed to go forward with Sunday as a closed day indefinitely, and additionally they've added Monday because of staffing shortages. We have done a letter which I think is ready to go out now to the LCBO, Michelle.
We'll be going out after this meeting.
A letter that basically thanks LCBO for their cooperation, that the results were very positive in terms of the closure had downward impact on emergency department, land ambulance, and policing statistics, significant, and we're requesting them to carry on with that Sunday closure indefinitely, which is basically what they've said they would do. We're just putting in writing that we support that. And we noted that they were going to be closed on Monday due to staff shortages, and that the agencies would continue to monitor the impact of Sunday and Monday closure and report back to them after a suitable time. So perhaps we might be advocating for Sunday, Monday closure as well as just Sunday. And I think we also, Michelle put a note in there about physical changes, operational changes at the store that I think it was a note that we acknowledged that they had said they would do something, Michelle.
Correct. Yeah.
So really, I think that's what we can say about the unless you had any other comments, Inspector.
And this is just brainstorming stuff. I just wondered, we were talking about it on a drive back from Pickle Lake one day. Is there, well, I guess two things. One, has there been some communication yet with the grocery store, because for their continued closure on Sundays? And then the other one was, is the municipality or the police services board, I guess, going to put anything out publicly themselves about this study that was done on and the results? my thoughts are we have really good data that's collected. I don't know if that's something that we want to, as a police services board or whoever, to get ahead of explaining why this is happening and the benefits that are coming from it.
Michelle, Christine, thoughts? Christine.
I guess I suppose we should do a report, I guess, for the public. I wouldn't feel comfortable, but I would support it. Definitely support it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Michelle, from a municipal police and a police services board perspective, any comments?
Yeah, we can certainly, staff can do a report to council based on this trial period of the 3 months and the work that the Police Services Board has been, and the meetings to summarize. I know that they're part of the agenda items for circulation to council, but having a specific report to address these statistics and the success so far of closing on the Sundays would be appropriate. We can bring it to the next council meeting.
Would we do this as in the format of a media release?
We could do it as a staff report to council and then follow up with a media release.
So I guess the question, do we want to do it through as a municipality or the Municipal Police Services Board?
It can be either or. The board can issue its own media release if it so wishes.
Just whichever is would have the most impact, I guess, let's say. And that we would work, I think, with the OPP, get the statistics from the OPP, the emergency department, and land ambulance as well, because that, from a public point of view, many of the public don't interact with despite all of Andrea's community work, don't interact with the police and don't see that as sort of, if you chose emergency department, land ambulance, and police, probably most of the public would say, I'm more likely to go to the emergency department. I'm more likely to get in an ambulance than a police car. So in getting the statistics from there and the positive impact this has on those services, I think is meaningful, very meaningful for the public. So I think we should do something. Michelle, can I follow up with you and we'll figure out Police Services Board, municipality, and then keep Inspector Dool in the loop?
Yes.
I think it really shows the good work that this Police Service Board has done, and then this board can get some credit that's long overdue for the work that you guys are doing and trying to make positive changes. I think it's a win-win.
Okay, and it might be and I'm just thinking, we have a media release went out yesterday, Michelle, on the coalition, the Policing Cost Coalition.
Yes, that was released by the City of Kenora, and tonight we'll be addressing that with our council in closed session prior to our release going out.
Right. So we were named in the Kenora media release as part of a coalition. There'll be something coming out from the municipality coming up. Yeah, sort of two prongs, and this is what the Police Services Board, the municipality, the OPP are doing in terms of the LCBO is one prong. Another prong is sort of just getting a discount on our policing costs. But the positive work that's going on needs to be, I think, put out there in the public.
I agree.
And I guess all the work, everything that Andrea just reported on, just a myriad of things. I know you communicate on a regular basis with the public, but is there any intention to sort of do something that would be that the public could read on this? That's doesn't have to be a book, but something that can be parsed down to a readable article. All the positive things that Andrea was talking about there.
Well, what I've seen in other detachment areas, and we have never done it here, but at year end, The year-end reports used to be done in front of council instead of being done just to the police services board. And it's then everything is in, I don't know all the lingo, but I guess it's more public. And then it would be, so then I would give my full policing report to mayor and council. Andrea would give her report at that point. I think that's something that would be valuable to start doing in January, like if every year doing the year-end reports in front of council, but that's your call. And
Okay.
then that gets it out there, because like Andrea does put out a lot of media with what she's doing, and it's an interesting balance. And Andrea, you need to speak up here, but it's an interesting balance that I'm learning between over putting too much stuff out and then no one's reading it anymore, or just we targeted stories.
Mhm.
I agree. It's difficult to say, hey, we're doing all of this stuff. We'd rather support our community partners. So CMHA's gotten a bunch of media, or they're getting a bunch of media about the crisis team, and SWAP team, like the outreach team, is supposed to be getting a whole bunch of information out about their program. So we're kind of standing behind them, letting them take the torch, but we'll definitely make sure we're promoting that and making sure that we're recognized for our participation in those programs. We can put some media out about our diversion programs and what we're doing there. As well as I was going to put a release out about our OPP Kids program and thanking the kids for all their assistance with the program, that now that we're completed. That was just this morning. So just we don't really, I mean, it's a lot of ongoing work, and we like to celebrate when we do hit a milestone or reach a point like that. But it can be also tacky to say, hey, look at all the things we did. So unless somebody else wanted to put that all together, I don't know.
Well, I think it's worthwhile putting out the stories that connect with almost everybody, you know, and some of those stories are not necessarily going to be milestones. They're going to be the stories that speak about just constant ongoing work that perhaps prevents so much from going wrong. I mean, there are a lot of good things happening, even in the midst of our high calls for service.
Yes.
Good. And nothing else on the LCBO right now, so we can leave that one. And Michelle, anything else? We have one, sorry, you're on mute. We have one closed session item noted.
Yes, I have a motion to read. So that the Police Services Board moves into closed session at 2:19 p.m. to discuss matters of general nature pertaining to the subject matter relating to a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried out on or to be carried out on behalf of the municipality or local board pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, section 239 2K regarding police services.
Moved by Christine,